Can you see the screen, Marty?
Can
you see it?
I'm looking at it. It went weird. It says welcome to the live event. It no longer looks like it did before. Odd. Oh no, now I have to click on a different one. Yep, I'm seeing a pink arrow go across it. Like it's loading.
I got it.
Also, Kris, is this, I got it now. Kris, is this going to be available for us to post on our website for people to review again? Are we taping it or?
Yes, we are recording it.
Okay.
And you said taping. You just dated yourself.
Record. I'm old. I'm older than you, so there you go.
We said my wife and I told my daughter, oh, we're going to tape that for you. And she said, what's tape? It's like she's picturing Scotch tape. Okay. Go ahead and make us live. I'm going to say something. All right, Marty, we're going live.
Kris, can you hear me okay?
Yep, Marty, you're good. We are live.
Okay, good. Okay, are we ready to get started, everybody? Thank you so much. My name is Marty Pleasant. I'm president of MNTRN. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to be meeting with Kris Murdock. I'll introduce him here in a minute. I want to introduce you to a few things about MNTRN first. Next slide, Kris.
There you go.
Do I have control of the next slide?
I hit it.
Oh.
Should be showing. Is there a delay on your end?
There's a delay, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, it hasn't come through yet. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
You just said this is better. MNTRN stands for Minnesota Talent Recruiter Network. We are a 501(c)(3) not-for-profit association. We are here to help advance the careers of HR and recruiting and talent acquisition professionals. Our role is to help you succeed and thrive through our industry. Next slide, Kris.
There's about a 3 or 4 second delay.
Yeah, that's weird. Sorry.
Oh, no, it should say upcoming events. Sorry, everyone.
Oh, upcoming events. So our next event next month is going to, and I'll go into more detail, but it is our recruiting and hiring older candidates, sorry. On September 19th, right the day after that, we're having an odd month happy hour at Lucky's in Bloomington. And over October 16th, we'll be having another webinar, Robot-Proof Recruiter Artificial Intelligence. And November 14th, we're just getting this confirmed is why it says tentative, but we're looking at doing a Recruiting in 2020 Lunch and Learn. And we have Doug Berg signed up to be our speaker for that event. He just signed up this morning. And then in December, we'll be hosting our annual holiday event, which will be at Poor Richards in Bloomington. And that event will be like the Ugly Sweater event, networking, and all the proceeds will go to military toys for kids, and possibly some for Toys for Tots, depending on how much we raise. Next slide, Kris.
I already hit it.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
We're waiting for it to, yeah, we're going to, for whatever reason, there's a bit of a delay.
I think I know what the next slide is, so I'll just start talking because I think most people. So our next event is a panel discussion, recruiting and hiring the older candidate. And we have some awesome speakers coming up for this event. As you can see here, this event is going to be hosted at the Children's Hospital, Masonic Children's Hospital at the Wolf Auditorium. The cost of this is $20 for members and $40 for non-members. You can sign up on our website. Boy, the slides are taking a long time.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next one. I don't know if everybody's seeing that delay or just me, but.
It shows up on mine, but I'm also sitting next to the computer that has the slides.
Yep. Okay. And again, the slide, you can just go into the next slide, but we do have limited seating available. You can register at MNTRN.org. It's going to be over 200 people at this event. It's going to be a very interesting conversation about how we can kind of bring out the discrimination against older workers and how we can get them hired, how we can talk to hiring managers about what we can do to broaden our searches into other categories.
Okay, we've hit the next slide.
Awesome. To go to my PowerPoint so I can see my next slide.
It's becoming a member.
Oh, thank you. And the next slide here is becoming a member of MNTRN. If you would like to join MNTRN, we have very reasonable yearly dues. It's $60 a month per member, or $100 for 2 years. $60 a month, $60 a year for a single membership, or $100 for 2 years for membership. And then also we have corporate memberships available. If you'd like to look at those membership options, you can visit us at MNTRN.org and find out information on that, or give me an email or a call. And now we'd like to welcome Kris Murdock. He's going to be our speaker today. He has over 20 years experience in sourcing and staffing. I'm kind of doing this off memory because I can't see the slide yet. He's the founder. Kris, I'm going to let you introduce yourself because I can't see the slide, but Kris is a national speaker, and we're very, very, very happy to have him with us today. He's going to teach us a lot, and hopefully we're going to come away with a lot of takeaways. This program will be recorded, so you guys can re-listen to it and share it with your teams outside of this. There'll also be a survey after the event that you can give us feedback on what we can do better and what other subjects and things you'd like to see in the next year.
Can you hear me, Marty? I
can hear you.
Okay, I just got the technology decided to scream at me and tell me that I was unable to be heard, even though you could probably hear me saying, Justin, they can't hear me.
I couldn't hear that. The only thing I heard was when you said, Marty, can you hear me? I didn't hear anything else before that.
Okay. So I have 20 years of experience as a researcher, a sorcerer, and recruiter. I started my career at TMP Worldwide during their big run-up when they were still the parent company of Monster.com. And then got recruited to Heidrick & Struggles, and from Heidrick & Struggles, I got recruited to Yahoo, where I was part of the in-house executive recruiting team. When I left Yahoo, I was laid off actually, and started IQ Talent Partners shortly thereafter. And this past July was our 10-year anniversary as a firm. And so that's been
awesome, Kris. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, no problem. Can I just do my slides? Can I just share my screen to make it? Oh. I'm gonna change it to where we're no longer using the onboard computer for this event. I'm gonna see if I can share my screen. So bear with me, everyone. I apologize for the technical difficulties. I think this is probably a user error and not a technology issue. Okay, looks like I'm now live. Can you see a bunch of apples?
Yep, it looks awesome, Kris.
Okay, so let's see here. All right. So one of the things that when I first talked with Steve and when he first approached me, I kind of we talked deeply about the relationship of sourcers and recruiters, and kind of the importance of sourcing. So whether you're a recruiter doing your own sourcing or a recruiter working with a sourcer, it's rather interesting, and it can be a little difficult to sometimes delineate what the roles are, who does what, and what's important. And so it looks like there is significant delay in the internet today, so my apologies. So one of the things that we've done, and one of the things that we've noticed, is that there's always been a little bit of animosity. When I was part of the in-house executive recruiting team at Yahoo, I also worked on strategic sourcing initiatives. Some of the recruiters just didn't want to work with a Sorcerer. Some of the recruiters saw Sorcerers as failed recruiters. Some of them saw them as junior recruiters. It was also considered, some people even considered it a throwaway job that you would, it was just expected to be high turnover. And so on this call today, I really want to talk through the difference between a recruiter and a Sorcerer. And I want to also throw in the staffing recruiter. So recruiters from the staffing world, sometimes synonymous with the full cycle recruiter. I'm also going to talk about building a sourcing pipeline. I'm going to talk about a philosophy that I came up with in response to the traditional marketing funnel. I'm also going to help everyone kind of understand the way that we solve searches at IQ Town, the way we did it at Yahoo, and the way we did it at Heidrick, but it was all done in a very different way. I'm also going, then move into talking about how to build your skills as a Sorcerer, and it's not quite what you think. So I'm going to leave you hanging on that note. And then also I'm going to cover 5 things that you can take away and use today. And again, those aren't going to be quite what you think. A lot of people, want to take the recruiter, the Sorcerer, and the staffing recruiter and say they're apples to oranges. That's not correct. That's not really the way things are. We're the same, but we're different. And so I have 3 apples here. Because Minnesota, Minnesota is known for the apples. I'm using the apples for a demonstration here. Honeycrisp apples, by the way, are like the best apples ever. And Marty has just told me prior to the call, this going live, that there's some even better apples coming. So I'm excited. Honeycrisp are all we ever buy. So you'll see here, you got recruiter, Sorcerer, and you got your staffing recruiter. Some recruiters are going to be really upset that they're the Granny Smith apple. This was completely random. Some people would rather be the Red Delicious there, or the Fuji in the middle. But this is just to emphasize that we're all part of the same team. We have different goals, and we do actually interact with each other. A lot of staffing recruiters work through other recruiters. Sorcerers work with staffing recruiters and in-house recruiters. So we're all part of the same team. We're all part of the same organization. We all have the same goals, but sometimes they're a little different. I want to talk about the role of the recruiter. I recently saw a member of the team, Dan Lockhart. He's one of our recruiters. He's been with us not quite a year yet. And he was asking about the delineation between a screen and an interview. He felt that as a recruiter, and he's on a full cycle recruiter engagement, he felt that the pre-screen that he has to do, that initial conversation, isn't necessarily the value that and impact that he can bring to the table. He really wants to, he felt that, in this case, that would be best suited for a Sorcerer, someone who specializes in that pre-screen. And it led to a pretty healthy debate online. And so I asked him to kind of create a list of what the roles of a recruiter would be. And ultimately, you look at this list. All of it is based on building relationships with the candidate pool, the candidates that come through that are interested and that are pre-qualified, and moving them through the process, helping the interviews understand who the candidates are, helping the hiring manager understand the interviewers, and really making sure that everyone is really kind of on the same page. If you can, you should actually find Dan on LinkedIn, and I believe he's got a link to his Twitter account It's really good stuff that he posts, and would highly recommend it. He and I are actually going to write a blog post about this content, this very discussion. Given that recruiters are really geared more towards, really are experts at the engagement of candidates, at the doing the deep dive interviews, understanding the business, understanding the value that the candidate's going to provide to the company and vice versa. He actually believes very strongly in that leverage model. And that working with a Sorcerer really allows him to provide that value and create the impact that he wants to have, which then brings us to the Sorcerer. Ultimately, the Sorcerer is both a researcher and the person that is focused on engaging with the talent pools. They're that tip of the iceberg, and are turning people up, getting people interested, making sure that they're qualified, and so getting that information out of the way, because part of the evaluation process, the engagement of candidates, is really making sure that they are interested, that they're qualified, that they're in the right geographic region, or they're ready to relocate, making sure that their compensation, if it's possible, to have that discussion. Some states you're not allowed to ask for people's specific comp, but so you have to make sure that you navigate that appropriately and are trained appropriately. But making sure that the Sorcerer's the person that is the one that's starting to bring people in, and it's going to ultimately save the time of recruiters, so that recruiters can take on more recs, manage more recs, be more of a project manager, and allow a Sorcerer to really focus on that engagement and building and starting that relationship building with the candidates. One of the interesting things here, when you think about a staffing recruiter or the full cycle recruiter, they have to do all the jobs of both recruiters and Sorcerers, and so and they have to do it faster, at a higher volume. They don't, and what ends up happening, and they have to work really hard. Also, staffing recruiters are compensated, based on contingency, retainer, or the hourly markup. And so they have a different relationship with the candidates. They have a different relationship with hiring managers, and they're also having to build relationships with the recruiters in-house that, in some cases, do have to process their candidates. So there's a lot to unpack here. If you have any questions, please do type in your questions, and we will get to those at the end once we get through everything. So when it comes to building a pipeline and finding that diamond in the rough, I'm going to give you, I had a guttural response one day when I was, maybe it was 2005, 2006. I kept hearing people talk about top of the funnel. We need more candidates at the top of the funnel. When I realized, no, it's not a funnel. I don't just call everyone all at once. I don't spam everyone all at once. I am targeted. I'm calling. I'm networking with people I've already worked with. I'm looking for talent pool. I'm looking for people on LinkedIn or Monster or Indeed or the ladders. Whatever all of my resources. I'm looking for those really targeted folks, and it could be anywhere from, it could be one person, it could be 20 people, but I'm going to call them first, and then I'm going to expand out. And what ends up happening, the funnel isn't wrong. It's just part of the process. It's the bottom part of the process. When in actuality, recruiting is more of a diamond shape. You start targeted, you expand out, and you come back to a point. That butt in the seat, that diamond in the rough, that purple squirrel that you're looking for. That's the process. And so this is something we teach our team from day one. It's about working smart. And the smarter you work, the easier it is to find people in the long run. Because you're actually contacting the most relevant candidates, because they're the ones that are sharing the most information about themselves. You are focusing on that low-hanging fruit, if we want to keep with the Apple theme. So that's where you start. That's what you do. We often call out when a diamond candidate, so one of those candidates that we contact right off the bat, we call them diamond candidates. We call out when we get a diamond candidate placed, because we've actually had some searches where the first person we submitted got hired. So this is the way you get one and done situations. It doesn't happen very often, but this is how it happens because you were really targeted in how it went. I'm going to warn you right now, when I came up with this, I am kind of cheesy. I like acronyms. I like plays on words. I tell lots of bad dad jokes, which is why I have people in the room with me, so that when I tell a joke, they laugh and I can actually hear people and not feel like I'm just telling a joke and hearing crickets. When I came up with the diamond recruiting model and the diamond sourcing model, there are the 4 C's of buying a diamond: cut, clarity, color, and carat. Those are the 4 C's of buying a diamond. So we have the 4 C's of the diamond recruiting process. And the first one is collaboration. It is highly important that the sourcers and the recruiters and the hiring managers all be on the same page. They all have to be working towards the same goal. And if the collaboration isn't there, you're not going to get candidates in a timely manner. You're going to be all over the place. The second aspect of the diamond recruiting process is calibration. Some of the outside of my firm, I've talked, everyone I talk with, they talk about calibration profiles. The calibration process is of the utmost importance. When you kick off a project, everyone kind of needs to show what they understood when you kicked off this process. In sourcing, if you don't do that calibration, which feeds back into collaboration, you could work on a project for a week or two and then find out you're completely wrong. You're off base. You're finding false positives. You didn't understand the importance of certain parts of the tech stack or certain skill sets you need in sales. Those are all those things that you can discover in the calibration and throughout the entire process. Every time a candidate is accepted to move forward, and that gets moved forward, what aspects of that candidate helped move him or her forward? Same thing on why a candidate isn't moving forward. What was wrong with their background? Calibrate all the time. The next part is the candidates aspect. When you have when you look at the candidates are, the big part here. You can't get candidates unless you really understand the role. You can't get candidates through the process unless you have that collaboration. And the collaboration at this point, once you actually have candidates moving through the process, the interviewers and hiring managers need to be on the same page. The recruiters need to be on the same page. The sourcers need to be on the same page. The schedulers and coordinators, who are often left out of discussions, need to be part of this, looped in on everything. And the candidates also need to have full transparency. They need to know who they're meeting with. They need to know, they need to make sure if there are any changes to the spec, any changes to expectations. This all comes, I want to come back to the scheduler coordinator. It is so important that at the interview stage that the scheduler coordinator is aware of everything that's going on. Vacation schedules, time off, any little thing that could go wrong. The scheduler coordinator is the lifeblood of closing searches. They touch everyone in the process. And so I always want to make sure that, they are, make sure everyone, I always give that advice, make sure that they're part of the process. And then culture is the last C of the diamond recruiting process. Culture fit, and Marty, I know you're going to be covering, recruiting, people that of more advanced age, more advanced ages. In the Bay Area, I would be too old. At 41, I would struggle to find a job in the Bay Area. The average age of employment there is mid-20s. I'm 15 years older than most CEOs in the Valley, and so I would struggle. And so part of the culture fit, you can't use that if it starts to get used as an excuse to exclude people because of age bias. That's typically where it comes up. Oh, the person's not a culture fit. So you want to make sure that if someone's using that, unpack it and find out what that means. And that will, I often hear people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s who are not done, who are not ready to retire, who are struggling with their job searches. They're constantly hearing not a culture fit. However, there are aspects of the culture that do need to be measured. Work ethic, understanding and being able to buy into the values of the firm, and the more that those are articulated by the company, typically candidates will be able to kind of select in or out. Not everybody can work for certain companies, and that's why culture is important, but it can't become a crutch for excluding people. So why do we do all this? It's ultimately, it's really to, this is where we got cheesy again. I apologize. It's really about finding the most, brilliant and finest professionals for our clients and the hiring managers, but also at the same time, making sure the candidates are aware of the value that they're bringing. Diamonds are valued. And candidates are all diamonds in themselves. I know it's cheesy. I'm getting some eye rolls here in the room. So I apologize for that, but that's kind of my cheerleader hat. Marty, before I move on to the next the next slide, is there anything that you'd like to add to this point, or would you like me just to continue?
Well, it's pretty brilliant. I think we'll just leave that alone.
Oh, you said brilliant.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
It
fits with your diamond analogy. Yeah, I think it's a great analogy, and I think that we all need to, and kind of with your diamond, I used to have a trainer that used to always tell me, he goes, iron sharpens iron. That was his big tagline, and he said, the recruiter that pushes back on the hiring manager or the account manager or whoever, the sorcerer, but everybody pushing back on each other is going to make us all better by asking another question, by forcing that. Iron kind of goes along with your whole diamond analogy too in some ways, but, pushing, recruiter to get more information, pushing the candidate, pushing everybody in the whole process is going to make everybody better.
Yeah, and the thing is that's the definition of value and impact. The more you push back, if you just keep doing the same thing over and over again, what kind of value are you providing? If you're providing more and more candidates that aren't going to make it through the process, you're not creating that value. If you push back and you ask the candidate, you get the hiring manager around to your way of, to understand that the market isn't responding well to the position description, or your comp is out of whack. That's the value that you provide as a recruiter. That's the, that consulting aspect is the value that you're providing, and ultimately the downstream impact. So thank you, Marty. So building your skills, and as I said earlier when we got kicked off, this isn't going to be what you think. Building your skills right now, light Boolean search can get is already ors and statements. Those are most recruiters and sourcers have a pretty good understanding of that. That's all that's really needed moving forward, because we've come a long way, and in recruiting, it used to be that you would have to comb through directories. When I first got started in recruiting, I used a ruler and a book, the Chain Store Guide, and I would literally scan each page looking for wool buyers or general merchandise managers, people that bought scarves, people who bought women's clothing, and I had to be the natural language processing in my brain. Oh, hey, skirts. We have lingerie. We have all these different, like, women's attire, women's coats, all these different things that, like, I had to. I was the one that kept building the search string in my head. And then I'd have to go to a 3x5 card catalog and actually pull out 3x5 cards with people's names, previous interactions. So that was the company's CRM. They had just bought File Finder, and we were getting we were in the process of moving most of the candidates into the database. But I still had to go in and this was all pre-Google even. I had to use Dogpile. I had to use Dogpile was my favorite. But there were so many other like early search engines that don't exist anymore. But we had to use that's how we found candidates. And as the technology got better, the Chain Store Guide moved to a CD-ROM. And then 6 months later, they put their first directory online, but it was still very rudimentary. You couldn't use multiple terms. You couldn't use OR statements. It was very rudimentary, but eventually the technology got to the point where I could do Boolean search strings within LinkedIn. You couldn't do it initially. You can now. You didn't have the ability to do X-rays of websites to find past speakers, but you have all of this ability now, and it's because there is a lot of artificial intelligence in the background. There's a lot of natural language processing going on, and it's becoming more and more prevalent. We're starting to see a lot of people also push back on automation. They're pushing back on artificial intelligence because they're afraid that they're going to be put out of a job. They're afraid that, if we automate all of recruiting, if we automate, all these different processes and all these different tasks, I'm going to be out of a job. What's actually going to happen is I think it's actually going to flip it. I think what we're going to actually see is we're going to see it come back to what recruiting used to be. It used to be about the personal connection. It used to be about building those relationships, and the automated processes, the artificial intelligence, it's going to make us more efficient. It's going to eventually help us reduce costs. It's going to help us close searches faster. I will say, since we started using tools like Eightfold, Seekout, HireTool, HireTual, I think that's how you pronounce it, and even LinkedIn Recruiter, we are finding candidates, building out our list of candidates, our targeted list of candidates, and our long list of candidates faster now, and it's forcing us to focus on how we write our emails, how we write our in-mails, how do we approach, talking to the candidates. A lot of our candidates are getting pinged left and right. In fact, some of the engineers in the Valley are getting hundreds of in-mails a week. How do you separate yourself from everyone else? You focus on engagement. You focus on how you're talking to them, how you're getting them on the phone. We iterate on emails. Pardon me, we spend more time talking about the email outreach that we do, the phone, how we engage with candidates on the phone, than we do on finding them. We give everyone the basics, but after that, we really want to focus on how we engage. And the benefits of automation and AI are really going to help us as sourcers and full cycle recruiters really find the candidates faster, so we can keep providing that value, and ultimately get those candidates hired that are going to provide that impact. It's rather, the debate. The debate is always going to be there. I remember when Heidrick and Struggles wanted to offshore a bunch of research. They wanted to leverage technology more to find candidates. But ultimately, the people side of it kept me from losing my job. They needed the partners and the associates needed someone here. So again, the idea that you're going to be put out of a job because of technology, I think is false, unless you are not leveraging the tools, leveraging the AI, and adapting to the technology, adopting that technology, and then moving forward and focusing your skill set on the engagement side of things. So some of the benefits for leveraging AI, the more you use it, the better off you are. Ultimately, AI is learning from you. It's adapting to the people that are putting the input in and the candidates on the other side. So the more you use it, the better the outcome. It's going to learn more. The systems need to learn how you operate. A lot of CRMs solutions, a lot of applicant tracking systems are also out there implementing AI and natural language processing to make it easier to search through the databases. There are and then there's a tool like Eightfold that'll actually mine that database. And there's a couple, there's several that are coming out and that are already out to actually remove gender and ethnic bias. Their whole tool is to go through and find all the diverse candidates in your system so that you can make sure that you have a well-rounded pipeline of candidates. Again, as I've said before, these AI-enabled tools, which include LinkedIn and Google, are going to help you identify talent more efficiently. And you'll be, and the hope is over time, rather than sending out 100 in-mails and emails or making 100 phone calls, you're making, you can start cutting that in half. That's the whole that's the whole point, the whole goal. Actually, Mike Hendel just asked a question that I think is pretty relevant. What do you see as a timeline as far as settling out of the plethora of AI tools currently on the market? Great question. We're already seeing tools like Seek Out and Hire tool really kind of dominate the market, but with anything, LinkedIn is still there. LinkedIn is not going anywhere. Everyone keeps saying, "Oh, LinkedIn is going to die." It's not going to die. It's going to continue to morph. That's what they've done they actually have done a very good job of adapting their tools to fit the needs of the candidates as well as the recruiters that are spamming everyone on their platform. I do think we're going to see a consolidation over the next few years. I think we're going to start seeing some of the bigger players that maybe 5 or 6 years ago started buying up applicant tracking systems and CRMs. I think we're going to start seeing those companies acquiring the AI tools and putting them into rolling them into their products, integrating their products more effectively and efficiently. You saw that happen with Connectifier and LinkedIn. That was one of the first ones that actually happened. And then you also have tools. Thank you, Mike. And then automating time-consuming tasks. We're starting to see tools like CRM solutions adding in. You can actually snooze a candidate when you reach out to a candidate. If there isn't a response, you can have it automatically resend a different note. That's great. Calendly is a great tool. So finding ways to automate some of those tasks will really help help you become more efficient in your role. A human is not a robot, and so in that we are tasked with not allowing things to happen the way they did after Monster and Dice came on. That, I think, is when candidates started to become more commoditized. We started seeing people, that electronic resume, it's so easy to delete. It's so easy to move on. We forget what it's like to be them. We hear the candidates talk about the black, applying and not hearing back. That the black hole of applying for jobs as the ATS systems and the CRMs out there start to really start to hone their AI overlays. They're going to start making sure that if you have 200 applicants, you're only going to have to review the ones that are most relevant. As the tool starts to learn, as the tools get better at targeting what you are looking for in a candidate for each of these recs, it's going to prioritize. We already have matching technology. It's just going to get better. It's going to be, provide, more relevant content, to the candidates. It's going to provide more relevant resumes for the recruiters, and it's going to come down to how we respond. So when you have 10 candidates out of 100 that are actually a fit for the role, what do you do with the other 90? You got to send them a note saying, hey, thanks for applying. This way they're not just getting not getting a response, because no response sucks. No response leads to bad Glassdoor reviews. With those 10, you get to focus, you get to spend more time with them. You're not having to spend, sift through hundreds of resumes. You're talking to 10 people. You're going to get to know them. The machines on the, dehumanize, but they do prioritize. But at the same time, it's our job as human recruiters to really make sure that we are engaging, building the relationships, because the candidate may not end up not being right for now, but could be interested, in joining the company year. That happens all the time. I want to reiterate here, we don't have to worry about, being replaced, as long as we're adapting and adapting our processes and adopting the tools as they come out and the tools change. And then I just got another question from David Buck. Thank you, David. What are the best next generation AI tools recruiters are using? Actually, right now, I know there are a lot of people that are using Seek Out and Hire tool that I referenced. Those are the ones that are getting talked about the most on a lot of the Facebook groups. I know some of the tools have had some issues with LinkedIn, and some tools have actually gone away because they were actually in violation of the LinkedIn policy. I also do see a lot of people moving towards tools like Eightfold. These are platforms that are actually looking through your existing talent pools. And so I think that's really where things are going. Hire Tool and Seek Out, a lot of the stuff a lot of the benefits there is that you can actually email candidates from within the system and not have to worry about InMails as much. The best next generation tools, and then there was another question, because that's where we're just about to approach. Anonymous, I'll get to your question in a minute. That's a really good question about InMails and emails. We need to get excited about the future. AI is going to really kind of help us provide more value to everyone in the recruiting value chain. It's also, and one of the things, the AI tools right now are so focused on removing ethnic and gender bias. I am hopeful that the age bias will get added in soon, so that this way we can be a little bit more focused on really understanding what culture fit really actually means versus the cop outs that kind of get used in its place. And here's Dan Lockhart's picture again, just because I had featured him previously, and I just didn't like the dead space on the slide. It's just a really good picture. And if you know Dan, you would know right now his face is probably beet red that I would even focus on this. But find him on Twitter and LinkedIn. Great dude. Lots of thought-provoking questions. So the 5 things that I'm going to leave you with are a little on the cheerleader side of things. Continue to hone your engagement skills with both candidates and the hiring managers. We always need, given the way the tools are going, we need to make sure that is what we're really focused on. Finding the candidates is going to keep getting easier. Get better at engaging with hiring managers. Get better at engaging with candidates. That's going to keep you gainfully employed into the future. Look at your existing tools and processes and evaluate whether or not they are future-proofed. Those are the types of, looking at, are you using, have you been using Hoovers? Well, if you stopped using Hoovers because it wasn't as relevant, well, you should go take a look at it now. Hoovers has really, changed the way that they look at data. They made an acquisition. It's smarter. It provides a lot more value to me as a sourcer. I'm getting more leads, more relevant leads. Use the diamond recruiting process to work smart and hard for your clients and candidates. A lot of candidates will tell you, they're not relevant. They're being contacted for irrelevant jobs. The diamond recruiting process, helps you, that kind of mindset of being targeted, making sure that you're relevant. That your search is relevant to the candidates and that the candidates are relevant to your clients or your hiring managers, that's what the diamond recruiting process does. And it's a mindset. It's not, it's a framework. It's moving towards a goal, and it's a structured way of moving towards a goal. And then understand that we're all different but the same. Ultimately, we all have the same goal, to put butts in seats and that want to be there. Recruiters, in-house recruiters, in-house sourcers, staffing recruiters, agency recruiters, we're all here together. We're all working towards a goal, and we want to we need to make sure that we are giving each other the respect and empathy that we need, especially also even down into the hiring managers, the interviewers, and the coordinators and schedulers. And then also be like Dan Lockhart. Ask lots of questions and create healthy dialogue to move ourselves and our chosen profession forward. And then just to call back to the title, create some value and impact. So Marty, now's the question time. So first new question. Oh, the other one. We had one about in-mails and emails. From Anonymous, what do you see as an appropriate response rate to whether use in-mails versus emails, etc.? My answer to this is yes. You actually need to use them all. It is one of it is so easy to use LinkedIn Recruiter to send a bunch of in-mails, and you keep sending in-mails over and over and over again, and you get no response. I think the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different response. Using tools like HireTool and Seekout allows you to find email addresses. ZoomInfo has email addresses. Hoovers now has email addresses. There are so many different resources out there that provide email addresses, and then you can go old school. There are tools like whitepages.com. It's going to sound weird. They have White Pages. It's White Pages Pro. You can get home phone.
You're showing your age a little bit there.
I know some of the people here are like Googling. Actually, I gave a talk the other day, and I referenced myself as being a Rolodex, and I saw 5 people immediately pick up their phone and start typing. And I said, if you're looking up Rolodex, you're fired. And for those of you on the phone that don't know what a Rolodex is, it was a bunch of business cards or index cards that was on a little dial, and it was alphabetically sorted, and you could turn it and find people. But yes, White Pages, you can actually call people. It's amazing what happens when you cold call people. And in fact, we prior to this, we had a session here in the office on how to do a cold call, how to turn a cold call into a warm call. So using in-mails, because you might get a 25% response rate to an in-mail amongst a population of engineers, but when you send emails to a personal email address, you might see a 35 to 45% response rate. And then sending emails to work, it could be work emails, it could be a 10% response rate. But combined, that's a really good response rate, because you're getting people that are not responding to in-mails to respond to personal emails, and then people that are only responding to work emails. You're getting all of those populations, and your combined number of candidates is now increased exponentially. Any other new questions? Marty, any questions on your end? I don't have any other questions here online, just sitting here waiting and watching.
One thing, it's you're talking about calling versus emailing. I know you just barely touched on that, and you just got done talking about it, but I see the tendency, even my own tendency, and I keep telling myself it's not laziness, but to email first and set up a call rather than just calling somebody directly and hoping they answer. But I would, even myself, I sit there and tell myself, there's nothing wrong with picking up a phone and calling somebody. And I tell people that all the time. I'm like, just call me. You don't have to set up an appointment. If you've got a question, just call me. But it seems to be that everybody wants to text or email first to make sure you're going to be available. How do you encourage your team to kind of get out of the box of emailing and texting first?
By reminding them that it's possible, and then showing them the value. And admitting it is not the easiest thing to do. That first cold call of the day is always the hardest one for me to make. And I remind them, don't call everyone. Again, call the diamond candidates. Call those candidates that you really want to hear from, and separate yourself from 99.9999% of the recruiters and sorcerers out there that are not picking up the phone to call them. And then, and in that, you have to make sure that you're cognizant of when you're calling and how you're calling. Given a lot of this is just, I tell them always ask after, tell them like right up front, introduce yourself. I'm a recruiter. I'm calling regarding a role with a client. Are you available to talk? Are you able to talk? Because most of the time they could be standing right next to a coworker, and they might actually be interested. And usually what I'll do then is I'll say, hey, this is my cell phone number. Text me when you're free, and we can connect, or asking for their availability and getting it on the calendar. That's the first thing you got to do when you cold call. You've got to make sure that you're really, really clear up front why you're calling, so that you're not putting them in an awkward position.
And also, it doesn't sound like a robocall then, because we all know there's a lot of times when you get that robocall, there's a big, a big wait, and then there's, hey, do I have, Marty Pleasant on the phone or Margaret Pleasant on the phone? And I already know that it's somebody I don't want to talk to, because, they've got my name from some random place if they're calling me by not my regular name that most people would know me by. Or when they ask for Mr. Pleasant, I definitely know they don't know who they're calling for.
Yeah, and sometimes humor works too. I have called someone and left a voicemail and said, "Hi, I'm a dirty, rotten recruiter, and I'm probably one of like a dozen that have already contacted you today. But I wanted you to hear my voice." And I'll say stuff, I'll be a little self-deprecating, and I'll get callbacks, or I'll get a text back saying, "Hey, I'm happy where I am, but keep me in mind." When you treat them like human beings on the phone, and you kind of make light of their situation, especially with engineers. Salespeople, I'm really clear and direct. Like, hey, if you're looking for a new opportunity, give me a call. Salespeople will almost always call back. You can leave the shortest voicemails for salespeople. They have FOMO.
Yeah.
Somebody just asked a question about with the surge of email tools, candidates are going to get flooded on email versus LinkedIn. What are my thoughts on sourcing on social media platforms? Do it, but be mindful that this is a person. Typically, social media is usually personal. I have tweeted at candidates. I've said, "Hi, I'm trying to get a hold of you," because if they have their direct message, the DMs are closed, I'll tweet at them and say, "Hi, I'd like to talk." And more often than not, I end up getting a response. Sometimes I get get trolled a little bit. I have actually. I remember at the request of a client, I emailed a whole bunch of people at Twitter. This was the early days of Twitter, and the people at Twitter, there were maybe 20 or 30 people. They started tweeting about my email. They're like, "Oh, you got it." They were having a conversation. The next thing you know, I actually had people messaging me with their resumes. These are people that followed these engineers at Twitter. And they were like, "There's a job at this company. I want that job." And so we actually ended up placing someone that responded to someone trolling me on Twitter. They didn't realize what they were doing. They were actually advertising the job for me. As far as Facebook Messenger, we've done that, but not all the time do people check not all the time do they see messages from people outside of their network, and sending them a friend request can be a little creepy. Again, it's one of those things where you have to understand when you use social media that you're being cognizant that this is a personal, potentially personal space, and when you contact them there, make sure you're mindful and respectful of that. Are there any other questions, Judson? That's InMail. Any tools on the market or in development that provide mobile numbers to be used in the initial outreach? Actually, some of the tools that we've already referenced, like Seek Out and Hire tool, they do sometimes have. And contact out. That's another one. Contact out. If it's available and they grab it, if they find it, because it's actually out, they're actually going out and looking for it. It's something that somebody has put out there publicly. So if it's available, so we have a group internally here that we call the CIA, the Contact Information Associates. It's a paid internship program where the nights and weekends they just grab email addresses and phone numbers from our resources and populate our spreadsheets. More and more, we're starting to see phone numbers, and they end up being cell phone numbers, not office numbers, because more and more companies are actually moving away from that. They're using Slack and Teams for internal calls and external calls, and not all the time is there even a directory anymore. Gone are the days of talking to receptionists or doing phone tree, dialing in and breaking into and hacking into phone directories. Some of you are probably laughing very hard right now. The people in the room with me are like, I don't know what you're talking about. Anything else? Nope. Okay, we got all the questions. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn. I connect, just send me a connection request. Always happy to talk about this. And if I don't know the answer to your question, I'll do my best to connect you with people that do.
Thank you so much, Kris, for being a part of our webinar today. We really appreciate it and your time. And I hope everybody understands the struggles of the internet and the slow slides and stuff. It happens once in a while that we have technical issues. Again, I'd like to invite everybody to sign up for our event in September, our Lunch and Learn event. It'll be on September 18th, and it is $20 for members, $40 for non-members. The subject will be speaking on how to hire the older or aging workforce. Our kickoff speaker is Steve Gross from the state of Minnesota, and our moderator is Philomena Satar, and she's Diversity Inclusion with Land O'Lakes. And we have a wide range of panelists, including Chris Farrell, who is with the PBS and the Star Tribune, and he's written a book, and he'll actually be having a book signing at the event too. If you'd like more information on the event, please go out to our website at MNTRN.org, and there's a lot of information there. If you have questions, please let me know. Anything else, Kris, that you've thought of that you need to?
No.
Any books coming out or anything exciting? Do you have a blog, Kris, by the way?
I don't, but I need to do more. We will be putting out the IQTalentPartners.com. We do post, once or twice a week. Sometimes I write it, sometimes a member of the team does. But yeah, we do put content.
Yeah, that'd be
there.
awesome.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, we're actually working on a blog too at MNTRN, so hopefully we can maybe repost some of your stuff or put links out to some of your stuff too in the future.
Anytime.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Please let us know if you have any questions. We're going to try to get this recording of this event up on our website so you can share and re-review. If you missed a comment or something, you can re-listen to it.
Fantastic. And Marty, thanks again, and giving me an opportunity to hear myself speak.
Thanks, Kris. We really appreciate it. It was amazing.
Bye, all.
Bye, all. Thanks.